he went that way and helped out there. So I was just strictly the Wednesday guy,
And you got promoted.
I got promoted.
That's nice.
So um, this week I'm struggling with my voice, but but yeah, it's temporarily. I let Pastor know that, and we sort of talked it over. It's not the fit for me.
Okay, so I just need to tell you, you play for a lot of songwriters.
Yeah,
You're doing a great job.
I appreciate that.
I followed you quite well. You did a great job.
Yeah,
I would have never been able to tell other than the fact that you wanted to go over them first, which I've done that for season ones and not season ones.
yeah,
So I think you do a great job. So even though you feel like it's not a good fit, I think you're better than you think you are.
yeah. I mean, the only
You
thing
don't know that because you're not me. I haven't played for the band.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. The only reason I say that is because our church wants to increase musically. I don't know how to read music. I don't know for a thing about
Gotcha.
music. And so
But you're
for,
picking songs that you know,
yeah.
and you're practicing them, and you're going over them. So,
As far as, I mean, I guess maybe like song leader would be one thing. Song like choir director would be a
yeah,
whole different
choir
thing.
director.
Yeah.
So you guys don't have one right now. Is that the guy that left?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so when we do get back into our building, it'd be nice to have somebody that can fill our choir orchestra. We've
Yeah.
got many different instruments that play, and so I can't do that.
But you do a good job.
I appreciate that.
You really
Thanks,
do.
Lord, for that.
So,
My wife, she's very musically inclined.
oh,
So she plays like 9 different instruments.
nice.
And we have a lot of different instruments at home. But like I say, I don't know anything about them.
It's all good. You're doing a good job. You're willing to do a good job. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't mind it at all. Good evening and welcome to Tri-City Baptist Church. Tonight, let's all stand together. We'll take those hymnals out once more and we'll turn to page 619. Stand up for Jesus, page 619, 619. that out loud on that first. Stand up for Jesus, ye soldiers of the cross. Lift high his royal banner, it must not suffer loss. From victory unto victory, his army shall he lead, till every foe is vanquished. Christ is Lord indeed. Stand up for Jesus, the trumpet call obey. Forth to the mighty conflict in this his glorious day. Ye that are men now serve him against unnumbered foes. Let courage rise with danger and strength to strength oppose. Stand up for Jesus, stand in his strength alone. The arm of flesh will fail you, ye dare not trust your own. Put on the gospel armor, each piece put on with prayer. Where duty calls with danger, be never wanting there. On that last, stand up for Jesus, the strife will not be long. This day the noise of battle, the next the victor's song. To him that overcometh, a crown of life shall be. He with the King of glory shall reign eternally. We got those water gun songs tonight, so all the way over to page 620, page 620, Onward Christian Soldiers. All together on that first. Onward Christian soldiers, marching as to war, with the cross of Jesus going on before. Christ the royal master leads against the foe. Forward into battle, see his banner go. Onward Christian soldiers, marching as to war, with the cross of Jesus going on before. At the sign of triumph, Satan's host doth flee. On then, Christian soldiers, unto victory. Hell's foundations quiver at the shout of praise. Brothers, lift your voices, loud your anthems raise. Onward Christian soldiers, marching as to war, with the cross of Jesus going on before. Like a mighty army moves the church of God. Brothers, we are treading where the saints have trod. We are seated.
All right. How many of you have to admit I did not get the water gun songs reference? Like, I don't know. Okay. Water gun song reference from Pastor this morning saying, I'm glad we're not singing songs that act like you're taking a water gun and charging hell with a water gun. Tonight, that's the songs we were singing. So, I just thought that joke was worthy of more than what he got from that one. I could tell it just went over. It just was missed there. And it took me about halfway through that song to go, oh, water guns. I get it now. Okay, sorry. Do want you to be in prayer, of course, for Pastor. He is not here by choice. He's trying to give his voice rest time, and he just had to be honest with himself, and because he knows if he's here, he's going to talk. And the reason is because whether you realize this or not, our pastor loves you. Our pastor wants to be with you, and multiple times it's like, okay, I'll just go and I'll be quiet. And I've had to say, no, you won't. You're going to talk. You love your people, and so pastor is home because he loves you too much. And so he is trying to get his voice rested so that he can heal up and be back to full strength in preaching power and those kind of things. So that is why Pastor is not here. He's kind of just still trying to gain that voice back. So please be in prayer that Wednesday that he'll have full strength back and just heal very, very quickly when it comes to his voice. Do want to let you know about the things that are coming up. Emmanuel Baptist Church in Fort Myers tomorrow has their special meeting that they're going to be hosting up there. Brother Bruce Humbert's going to be preaching at that meeting. Have services, starts at 1. They have a break there, and then about 5 they have a meal, and then an evening service at 7. So if you're able to make it to any of those services, I'm sure it is going to be a good time there in Fort Myers with Emmanuel Baptist. The young adults have the regional encounter that is this Friday at 7 p.m. That is going to be hosted at the Church Fellowship Hall. We are going to be partaking in the Lord's Supper in the evening service, January the 15th, so I do encourage you to join us. That'll be right here. We're going to do everything right here and have everything set up here, so do come join us for that. It's been a while. Normally we have a practice, shall we say, of doing it about once a quarter or so. Hurricane knocked everything for a loop, and so it feels like it's been at least half a year, so where I'm looking forward to that, definitely looking forward to that. Then, of course, something also to look forward to is Anniversary Sunday on January the 22nd. That is also going to be hosted here with Pastor Randy King is going to be joining us. I do encourage you to invite people out to the service. There is something unique when you invite somebody and say, I want you to come to our church, but you don't actually go to our church. You go to a different building that we're meeting in. There's something intriguing about that to the lost. Because they hear you tell the story and explain everything. It's like, well, what is so important about your church that you'd still want me to come when it's not even in your own building? What is unique about your church that you're still excited about me being there when it's different, when it's not your normal? And so I would encourage you, invite people out to our Anniversary Sunday. As Pastor mentioned this morning, 1966, if my memory serves me right, is when the church was founded. Been going ever since, shall we say. And so our church has been here for a while. And so it's also got that longevity as you invite people to come on out for that. So January the 22nd, please make your plans to be here. All right, Brother Morrison, I'll let you come on up and lead us in our next song, please.
All right, if you take your hymnals one last time, be at page 636. Have I Done My Best for Jesus? Page 636. As we all stand to our feet, page 636. Join me on that first. I wonder, have I done my best for Jesus, who died upon the cruel tree, to think of his great sacrifice at Calvary. I know my Lord expects the best from me. How many are the lost that I have lifted? How many are the chains I've helped to free? I wonder, have I done my best for Jesus when he has done so much for me? The hours that I have wasted are so many. The hours I spent for Christ so few. Because of all my lack of love for Jesus, I wonder if his heart is breaking too. How many are the lost I've helped to free. I wonder, have I done my best for Jesus when He has done so much for me? I wonder, have I cared enough for others, or have I let them die alone? I might have helped a wanderer to the Savior, the seed of precious life I might have sown. How many are the lost that I have lifted? How many are the chains I've helped to free? I wonder, have I done my best for Jesus when He has done so much for me? On that last, no longer will I stay within the valley. I'll climb to mountains high above. The world is dying now for want for someone to tell them of the Savior's matchless love. How many are the lost that I have lifted? How many are the chains I've helped to free? I wonder, have I done my best for Jesus when He has done so much for me?
Great singing. You may be seated.
All right, at this time we will go ahead up and take our offering. Brother Labarge, could I ask you to lead us in prayer, please?
Heavenly Father, we do thank you so much for allowing us to come back this evening. Lord, thank you for the message we've heard this morning, how it stirred our hearts. Lord, we look forward to the message this evening. We just pray that you fill the preacher with the power of your Holy Spirit. Lord, give us that exactly what you'd have us to have tonight. Father, as we take up this offering, we pray that you bless it, use it for your honor and service. In Jesus' name we pray.
Well, thank you so very much, Mrs. Johnson. Appreciate that so very much. It's been good to have you with us today. Appreciate you giving up your time and energies and talents for our services today. Appreciate that so much. 1 Samuel in chapter number 21. 1 Samuel in chapter number 21 is where we're going to be. 1 Samuel chapter number 21. Josh, I'm going to go ahead and try and make the switch here. Chapter 21. There we go. Last Sunday night, I decided I'm just going to keep things simple. I would turn that down. And I would stay behind the pulpit. But it drove me about bonkers staying behind the pulpit last Sunday night. And I said, I'm not doing that again. We're just going to, if the microphone doesn't work, I'm just going to shout louder is what I'm going to do. 1 Samuel in chapter number 21. And when I was in college, without going through long story, when I first went to college, I did not go prepared for college financially. And the Lord miraculously provided for me when it came to my first couple years of college. I remember very specifically my dad coming into my room, like, I don't know, this is probably a week or 2 weeks before I left for college, as I'm breaking open my piggy bank, literally taking everything that I had, which was probably less than a couple $100s, and my dad's looking at me going, "That's all you have saved for college?" I'm like, well, I kind of made a last-minute decision, never prepared for this. And God miraculously provided for my stupidity. It was wonderful. It was a blessing. And so I just figured that I could operate that way through the rest of my college years, be stupid, and God will bless, right? He did it before. No, that was God's grace. And so I had to learn some lessons. And so there came one point in time in my college experience that I was starting to get in debt pretty heavy to the college, and it was getting to the point to where they were going to say, well, you can't take any more classes because you owe us for too many that you've already taken. And so I went home for a summer and worked as much as I could humanly work. It was, I believe, if you calculated it out, I had about 4 full-time jobs over that summer. How that happened, I don't know. It was a blur. It happened to be the same year that Charlie hit in Florida, and I was currently also writing my future wife at that time, and she was quite upset with me because I didn't even know that a hurricane was going on. She's like, "I'm about to die, and you didn't even know." And I'm like, "I was working." It was bad. It was all bad. That summer, I learned what physical exhaustion and mental exhaustion were in a way that I had never understood before. Have you ever done that? Have you ever been in a spot to where you've just worked and worked and worked, or maybe you can't get the sleep that you want to? You're just done. You're just done in. I remember very specifically starting to get into that zone to where sleep deprivation starts to affect, everything, the way you think and you process thoughts. And I remember being conscious enough to realize that my brain is not working. Like something would happen, and I would realize it's taking me about 10 to 15 seconds before I go, something just happens. And I had enough conscious thought to be able to realize, why did it take me so long to respond to that? I just slammed my finger in the car door and stood there for 10 seconds staring at my hurt finger going, that hurts. That hurts. I better do something about this. It was physical, mental, emotional exhaustion. Where we're going to find ourselves in 1 Samuel chapter number 23 is a time in David's life to where I imagine he is at that point. He is at a time of complete and utter exhaustion. He is just wrung out. He's been through it. Here's the time where David has just had the javelins from Saul thrown at him. Imagine how much his life changed when he was just, in the palace where God has called him to be the king. He's playing music for the king. It's like everything's going right, and then there's a spear that lands next to his head, and everything changes. And he talks to his best friend, Jonathan, and Jonathan is like, no, it can't be that bad. And later on, another javelin gets thrown at David, and David's going, no, seriously, your dad has it out for me. So Jonathan says, all right, well, I'll go check this out. I'll go find out from my dad and find out what's really going on. And basically, Jonathan comes back going, dude, you got to run. My dad hates you. My dad is coming after you. And so David has just said goodbye to the best friend he's ever had, probably for the last time he's ever going to see him. He runs, and he runs to where his heart is. He runs to the house of God, and he runs to the priest Abimelech. And when he gets there, he is barraged with questions. David, what are you doing here? What's going on? I've heard that there's something going on with you and Saul. Is everything okay? And David lies to him, tells him he's on a mission for the king, and he had to leave so quickly. He doesn't even have any bread to eat. And so the priest gives him the show bread from the temple. And while he's there, as David's trying to find a place to rest, trying to find a place of safety, he looks across the way and he sees, I can't even remember his name, Doeg the Edomite. Doeg the Edomite doesn't really mean much to us. We don't know who that is, but David did. David sees him and he goes, that guy's going to turn me in, no question. By the way, if I jump ahead to let you know who Doeg was, he eventually did come back and killed every single priest and all the servants at the temple because they helped David. This guy was not a good guy. David sees him and goes, oh man, I thought I found a place of safety. Now I've got to run even further. And so David runs to Gad. He runs to a nation that is an enemy, a nation that he has fought against. Now I want you to just kind of look at this. I tell this story in less than a couple of minutes. This is David's life. This is David literally running for his life. This is not, oh, this might happen, this might be a dangerous time for me. This is David knowing full well that Saul the king is after my head. This would be equivalent to you all of a sudden getting a notice from the president saying, you're done. Now, that'd be commander-in-chief, every single part of the military, every single officer of the law, everybody under his command, and he says, public enemy number one is me. Imagine how much David is physically running for his life. Now, it wasn't as easy to run. I mean, he didn't jump in his car and take off. He's got to ride a horse, or he's got to walk, or he's got to ride the chariot. Physically an exhausting task. And then everywhere he gets, he has to keep running. Emotionally, he said goodbye to his family, to his friends, to everything he knows. He's running for his life. Spiritually, do you think it's starting to wear on him? Do you think it's starting to get to a point of, God, you told me I was going to be the next king, and here I am running for my life. Nothing is going. If you ask David to write out his life plan of what's going to be happening in the next couple of years, I highly doubt running for my life was part of that plan. Everything is going wrong for David. He is just simply wore out. I bet he's not sleeping well. Can you imagine trying to get a good night's sleep when literally everybody in the army is after you? When you know you just saw this guy that you know is a murderer, and he just saw you. Oh, and he's going to find out that Saul wants you. Oh man, he's going to move up the ranks in Saul's army if he can get David. Oh, David is in a mess. 1 Samuel in chapter number 21, I want you to look with me at verse number 12 and see how absolute desperate David has become. 1 Samuel 21 and verse 12. And David, I forgot one part of the story that I got to tell here. While he was there with the priest Abimelech, he gets there, he says, I have no food. And he says, and I don't even have a weapon. Are there any weapons here? And there was one weapon, and it was the sword of Goliath. And David took it and said, there's no sword like that one. Now, I don't know, I might be reading into the story a little bit here, but yes, that was an important sword to David, but David wasn't a Goliath. David is carrying a sword that's too big for him. I can imagine that makes him a little bit more obvious to anybody that walks around. It's like, dude, look at that guy's sword. It'd be like a guy that's carrying around, a shotgun right now, just walking down the road. You'd be like, there's something up with that guy. I mean, I don't know. Why is he walking through Walmart with a shotgun? Something's going on. David is carrying around this massive sword, and so he runs into Gad. He runs into the enemy's camp looking for protection because, I kind of get where he's going. He's going, well, the friend of my enemy is my friend. If I'm here and Saul shows up with his army, at least they're going to fight the army, and so maybe I can hide in a corner somewhere. But he's carrying around Goliath's sword, probably. Maybe, once again, I might be reading into the story a little bit, but I don't think that sword was all that easy to hide. And so 1 Samuel 21 and verse 12, Gath begins to point out, hey, isn't this David? Isn't this the guy that they sing the songs of Saul has killed his thousands and David is 10,000s? Isn't that guy? They know who he is. They're going to find out that Saul's coming after him. David's dealing with all of this pressure. Where can he run? He has literally ran to the enemy's camp to look for safety, finds nothing there. 1 Samuel 21 and verse 12, and David laid up these words in his heart, the words that all of the enemy was saying around him, that, hey, this is David, and was sore afraid of Achish, the king of Gath. Now, I want you to just think through this, what we tell the story. Why do you think David is sore afraid of the king? Why do you think he's scared of him? He's his enemy. What do you think the king is going to do when he finds out David, who Saul hates and is coming after, is taking refuge? Make a statement? Turn him over? He's not going to be hiding very well. He's going to be found out very, very quickly. He's scared something's going to happen. They actually bring David to the king. And here's how desperate David is. Verse 13, and he changed his behavior before them and feigned himself mad in their hands, and scrabbled on the doors of the gate, and let his spittle fall down upon his beard. Then said Achish unto his servants, Lo, ye see the man is mad. Wherefore then have ye brought him to me? Have I need of mad men, that ye have brought this fellow to play the madman in my presence? Shall this fellow come into my house? And he escorts David out. He gets rid of him. Now, I don't know about you, but to get to that point, you've got to be pretty desperate. To get to the point that you fake literal insanity, you've got to be desperate. David is absolutely desperate, wrung out. He has been running for his life. Turn with me to Psalm chapter number 34. I give you this story. I tell you where David is at in his life right now, because where I want to preach is out of Psalm 34, which is a psalm that David wrote right after this occurrence. We found the story of what's going on. I tried to give you a little bit of the backstory. I don't know if I don't know if David would be too excited when he found out that this move of his was recorded in eternal Scripture. I don't think this was his proudest moment. I don't think this is the one that when he gathered all of the young soldiers about him to tell them the old war stories, I don't think, I could be wrong, but I don't think he gathered the young men around and says, hey guys, let me tell you about the time I acted totally insane. Yeah, I was letting the spittle run down my beard. I was scrabbling at the door. It was hilarious. I don't think so. I think this was a response of desperation. I kind of see this, and I already kind of mentioned it a little bit, as David's running, I don't think he's spiritually at his strongest either. Because when he runs to the house of God, his first response is to lie. His first response is deception. This is his first response. He's trying to do what we've all done when we get to the end of our rope. How am I going to get out of this? How am I going to figure this out? How am I going to... We're pushing. We're just wrung out physically, so we try to push more. We try to keep going because we have to. This is where I believe David is at. And David comes to the end of this story when he's finally released from this king that he was scared for his life. And we read Psalm chapter number 34 and verse number 1. Well, the header many of you will probably have in your Bible, a Psalm of David when he changed his behavior before Abimelech, who drove him away and he departed. Here's how David responds after all of this. I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. My soul shall make her boast in the Lord. The humble shall hear thereof and be glad. O magnify the Lord with me, and let us exalt his name together. There's a part of us that might say that David might respond to this whole scenario and say, well, because of my brilliance, because of my ingenuity, I created this master plan to feign myself insane, and it got me out. You don't see David pointing to that at all. You don't see David saying, hey, I had a great plan and God used my plan. No, you kind of see the opposite. You see David saying, verse number 2, my soul shall make her boast in the Lord. It's not what I did that saved me, it's the Lord. Verse 3, O magnify the Lord with me, and let us exalt his name together. You see, David clearly knew that God was the one that brought him through that scenario. David clearly understood from his own words that this was not me. This was God caring for me. This was God protecting me. And David praises the Lord in the midst of this difficult, harsh, rough time. Look at verse number 4. I sought the Lord, and he heard me, and delivered me from all my fears. They looked unto him. They looked unto the Lord. They looked unto him and were lightened, and their faces were not ashamed. They were not ashamed to go after David. They were not ashamed to attack him. They were not ashamed to attack God's anointed. The fact that God had anointed him didn't stop any of his enemies. Verse 6, how does David refer to himself? This poor man cried, and the Lord heard him and saved him out of all his troubles. The angel of the Lord encampeth round about them that fear him, and delivereth them. O taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man that trusteth in him. I want you to realize where that statement comes from. It doesn't come from a place where everything has been going right. It doesn't come from a place where everything is going well. This does not come from a David sitting on the throne of the nation, ruling over everything that he sees. That's not where this statement comes. It says, taste and see that the Lord is good. This comes from a David that just came through, possibly at that point of his life, the most difficult, hardest trial he had ever faced. The hardest time where he was wrung out the most physically, emotionally, spiritually. He was done, and as a poor man with nothing left, with feigning himself insane because he had no other option. He could not come up with a plan. He could not come up with anything to get him out of the situation. And he cries unto God, and God delivers him. And when does David say, taste and see that the Lord is good? He says it right then. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man that trusteth in him. Recently, Pastor has been bringing us through a semi-series, shall we say, of some of the blessings that come with being a Christian. Some of the blessings that come alongside with walking with the Lord. And there are many, many blessings. There are many benefits to salvation, other than just heaven. That's just the icing on the cake, shall we say. Oh, there are many, many benefits. Here, David, coming through one of the hardest points of his life, comes out and says, taste and see, the Lord is good. There are blessings. There are benefits. One of the greatest encouragements to me as a Christian is watching those that have run the race farther than I have. Specifically those that just because of time, we believe are coming closer to the end of their race than they are the beginning of their race. The end is coming. By strength, if the years be around 70 or so, that's great. It might be longer, but we know that all of us face an end day. And when I see a Christian that has walked with the Lord and has served God, and they come near the end and say, it's worth it. Those are the ones that encourage me to keep pressing on. Those are the ones that say, man, for me to show up in a service, it's not that hard. I'm starting to get to the age to where the body aches and all of the complaints of the old flesh start rearing their ugly head a little bit more as the years go. I'm starting to understand that more and more. I just said something to my wife just the other day as I got out of bed. I was like, why does my foot hurt every morning? Like, I don't ever remember injuring my foot, ever. I have no idea what, but it's like the first 3 steps are like, ow, ow, and then it's okay. I'm like, I'm fine now. I've taken my first 3 steps of the day, and now I'm okay. Why? What is wrong with my body? It's rebelling against me. And some just look and laugh at me, and it's not encouraging, okay? It's just not. Because we all know it just becomes more and more. For me to show up in a service is, in all honesty, not that much of a sacrifice, not that much of a difficulty. When I watch somebody that, not trying to be rude or unkind, but they have to hobble their way into a service, they're hurting, everybody knows. I remember a young, I was about to say young couple, but they were quite opposite of that. An older couple that used to take their walkers and take my kids when they were real little and let my kids ride on the walker. And they'd scoot my kids around at, a grand total of 0.2 miles an hour as they would make their way around. And I would watch that and I would go, now there's somebody that's screaming, taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man that trusteth in him. It's worth it. Yeah, it's hurting, but it's worth it. Yeah, there's a struggle involved. I live in a sin-cursed world. Guess what? It's all a struggle. I get it, but it's worth it. David comes for this time to where he was at what I would consider one of his hardest days. And the Lord delivers him and he says, it was all worth it because I got to feel the deliverance. I got to draw closer to my Savior in that time. This has been worth it to me. Now, I want you to see there in verse number 9. O fear the Lord, ye his saints, for there is no want to them that fear him. Remember who is speaking and when he is speaking. The young lions do lack and suffer hunger, but they that seek the Lord shall not want any good thing. Come, ye children, hearken unto me. I will teach you the fear of the Lord. Here's David saying, at all this time, everything that he's been through, he's saying, I have feared the Lord. I have gone through some stuff, and I lack nothing. I've got everything that I need. I've got it all. Those that fear the Lord, what a promise that is. What a benefit that is. Oh, fear the Lord, ye his saints, for there is no want to them that fear him. Man, that's a promise. That's a promise that only God could give. Why is it so important to fear the Lord? Why does David say, listen, let me give you some instruction on fearing the Lord here. Why is it so important? Because there's benefits. Look at verse number 12. Verse number 12 is like a pivotal point in this psalm. Verse number 12, you get the example saying, bless the Lord. I'm telling you, I'm David who just feigned himself insane, had no recourse, no action. I cried unto God in the poorest state I've ever been, and God heard me. This is David giving his story. And then he says in verse number 12, what man is he that desireth life and loveth many days that he may see good? What man is out there that loves their life, wants to see many, many more good days? Is there anyone out there? Now, I want you to I'm going to pause for a second, and I want to make sure you don't misunderstand. I am not preaching a prosperity gospel, that if you serve God, everything will